Welcome, dear listeners. Today we take you high above the majestic peaks of Mount Hood, where an ordinary flight takes an extraordinary turn. Picture this: a seasoned pilot, a glint of something strange in the snow, and a mystery that sends him scrambling for help. What could he have seen in the untouched wilderness of this notorious mountain? Stay with me as we unravel a gripping tale of danger, discovery, and determination that will leave you on the edge of your seat. Pilot Jameson couldn't believe his eyes when he soared over the top of Mount Hood. Out of the corner of his eye, he saw something strange just sitting there. It glistened in the sunlight, almost blinding his eyes. Was it an object, a person, or something else? Intrigued and concerned, Captain Jameson quickly reached for his radio, urgently calling the local police. But before we start, smash the like button and make sure to subscribe if you haven't, and hit that notification bell so that you won't miss any new stories. Mount Hood was a notorious mountain. Many climbers wanted to climb it, however. It wasn't an easy thing to do, as there was no trail to the top. Pilot Jameson knew all about the mountain's risks as he flew over it multiple times a day. He operated a small aircraft, transporting goods and sometimes one or two persons to the other side of the mountain. He had seen many people trying to get to the top, but only a few of them actually made it there. But what he saw today, he never expected to see. From a distance, Jameson could not identify what he saw. Concerned by what he was seeing, Pilot Jameson reached for his radio. He called the local police, asking them if they could go up there and see what was going on, but the police were reluctant. They knew how dangerous Mount Hood was, and they didn't want to risk their officers' lives. That was when Pilot Jameson thought of the perfect idea. He asked the dispatcher if he could get him a police helicopter so he could get 3 police officers to the top of the mountain. Not long after, they took off into the sky, heading for Mount Hood. After 10 minutes, it was time for Jameson to land the helicopter on Mount Hood. When the helicopter touched the ground with a slight thump, everyone sighed in relief. All right, that went quite well. They started to look around, but to Jameson's surprise, he did not see anything out of the ordinary on the mountain. It now became a question of if this had been a person, had he or she just left. The team began to prepare diligently. Just when the team was considering giving up, they stumbled upon human footprints in the snow. These footprints led away from the search area. Following the footprints, the team came across a small, hastily abandoned campsite. A tent was half collapsed, and there was a fire pit with ashes that were cold. "Someone definitely stayed here," Jameson said, a mix of relief and curiosity in his voice. "But where have they gone now?" Encouraged by these discoveries, the team decided to extend their search to a wider area. They divided into smaller groups, each taking a different direction from the campsite. As they explored, they stumbled upon a hidden tunnel entrance, partially covered by snow and rocks. "Look at this!" one of the officers called out, pointing to the opening. The team gathered around, peering into the dark entrance. The team stood at the entrance of the tunnel, unsure of what to do next. "Should we go in?" one officer asked hesitantly. After a brief discussion, they decided to explore the tunnel. "Let's see where this leads," Jameson said, leading the way. One by one, they entered the tunnel. The darkness enveloped them as they moved away from the entrance. They could barely see anything beyond the beams of their flashlights. "Stay close and watch your step." The tunnel was narrow and the ground uneven. They had to move carefully. As they progressed, the tunnel's conditions became more challenging. It was dark, and the path was full of obstacles. Further in, they found more signs of recent human activity: a discarded water bottle, a footprint in the dirt. These clues suggested someone had been here not too long ago. The tunnel's passages became increasingly narrow and unstable. The team had to move in single file. They had to duck and weave through tight spots, feeling the pressing weight of the mountain above them. As they progressed, the ground underfoot became more treacherous. Loose stones and gravel made their footing uncertain. "Watch your step," called out one officer as a small rock slide clattered down a slope. They realized that every step had to be taken with caution. The sound of their own footsteps bounced off the walls, mingling with the distant drip of water. "Did you hear that?" one of the team members whispered, pausing to listen. The echoes made it hard to tell where sounds were coming from, adding a sense of eeriness to their journey. Further into the tunnel, they found more evidence of recent human presence. A torn piece of fabric hung from a jagged rock, and they discovered food wrappers scattered on the ground. These discoveries fueled the team's determination. "We need to find out who was here," Jameson said, his voice firm. As the journey became more difficult, some team members began to question their mission. "Are we sure we should keep going?" asked one officer, looking uncertain. Debates broke out among the group. They weighed the risks against their desire to find out what was further inside. The debate intensified between those wanting to press on and those urging caution. "We've come this far. We can't stop now," argued one officer, his voice full of conviction. Another countered, "But we need to be safe. We can't risk getting trapped in here." Despite the doubts and fears, the decision was made to continue. "Let's move forward, but we'll take it slow and be extra careful," Jameson decided. The team agreed. Their resolve strengthened. They moved on, each step taking them further into the depths of the tunnel and the heart of the mountain's mystery. The team reached a fork in the tunnel, facing a difficult decision. Two paths lay before them, each disappearing into darkness. "Which way should we go?" one team member asked, looking from one path to the other. They paused, considering the best course of action, knowing that their choice could significantly impact their journey. A heated debate ensued as they discussed which path to take. Some argued for the left path, citing its wider entrance, while others favored the right, which seemed less steep. Finally, they decided to split into two groups to explore both paths. "We'll cover more ground this way," Jameson said. One group, led by an experienced officer, took the left path. Jameson took charge of the second group, leading them down the right path. They agreed to communicate regularly and regroup after a set time. Jameson led his group with confidence, showing his expertise in navigating the challenging terrain. He kept a steady pace, ensuring everyone stayed together. "Stay alert," he reminded his group. His leadership gave the team a sense of security as they ventured deeper into the unknown path. Jameson's group soon stumbled upon an abandoned campsite. The remnants of a tent and a small fire pit suggested someone had stayed there for a while. "Looks like someone set up camp here," Jameson observed, examining the site. The discovery was intriguing, hinting at a prolonged human presence in the tunnel. The campsite clearly showed signs of someone having lived there for some time. Cooking utensils and a sleeping bag were among the items left behind. "This wasn't just a temporary stop," one team member noted. The existence of the campsite deep in the tunnel raised many questions about who had been there and why. Finding the campsite reignited the team's determination to find out more. "Someone might need our help," Jameson said, looking around the camp. The possibility that they might find someone, or at least some answers about the camp's resident, spurred them to continue their search with renewed energy. They began to thoroughly investigate the camp for clues. They sifted through the items, looking for anything that might tell them more about the person who stayed there. "Maybe we can find something that tells us more about them," one of the team members suggested. As they carefully examined each object, they found items that helped piece together a story of survival. A map with markings, a journal with a few entries, and some personal belongings gave them insights into the life of the camp's inhabitant. "They were definitely trying to stay alive down here," one team member remarked, holding the journal. The discovery of the camp and its contents made the team feel like they were close to uncovering a significant mystery. "We might be onto something big here," Jameson said, a sense of anticipation in his voice. They decided to push on, hopeful that they were close to finding more concrete answers. Deep in a remote part of the tunnel, the team made a startling discovery. There, lying against the cold, damp wall, was the climber. He looked exhausted and weak. "Over here," Jameson called out, signaling the others. They rushed to the climber's side, surprised and relieved to find him after their long and uncertain journey through the mountain. The team felt a wave of relief wash over them as they realized the climber was alive. He was weak, but he was breathing. "We found him," Jameson said, his voice filled with relief. The climber opened his eyes slowly, looking up at the faces of his rescuers with a faint sense of recognition and gratitude. Immediately, they began to administer first aid to the injured climber. One of the team members carefully wrapped him in a thermal blanket, while another offered him water. "We're here to help you," they reassured him as they checked for injuries and made him as comfortable as possible under the circumstances. As he regained some strength, the climber began to share his story. He had gotten lost on his way back from the peak and injured his leg. Unable to walk, he had crawled into the tunnel for shelter. "I thought I'd never be found," he said, his voice weak but filled with the relief of being rescued. He explained how he had tried to signal for help using whatever he had at his disposal, but as days passed with no rescue, he retreated further into the tunnel, seeking shelter and hoping for a miracle. "I just wanted to stay alive," he said, recalling his desperate attempts to survive. With the climber found, the team quickly started planning the rescue. They discussed the safest way to transport him back through the tunnel and down the mountain. "We need to be careful and steady," Jameson advised. They prepared a makeshift stretcher and planned their route back, considering the climber's condition and the challenges of the terrain. Jameson took the lead in coordinating the rescue operation. His experience and knowledge of the mountain proved invaluable. He instructed the team on the best ways to navigate the treacherous paths while ensuring the safety of the climber. They began their cautious descent, carrying the climber on the stretcher. The journey back was filled with obstacles. They had to maneuver through tight spaces and over unstable ground. Despite the difficulties, the team remained focused and determined. Their primary goal was the safety of the climber and each other, and they tackled each challenge with a steady resolve. Finally, after hours of careful navigation, the team emerged from the tunnel with the climber. They successfully reached the base of the mountain, concluding their daring and arduous rescue mission. If you enjoyed this story, you might like this one about a rich dad who was ashamed of his waiter son until one day he surprised him with his dedication to his work.